The meeting on the Committee of Accountability, Finance, and Personnel of the Board of School Directors will please come to an order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Herndon.
Present.
Director Jackson.
Present.
Director Leonard.
Present.
Director Zomber.
Present.
Chair Garcia.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks those who do not wish to participate to please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted from the Central Service Building. The meeting is also broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta de la Mesa Directiva de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número. Nuevamente, para escuchar esta reunión en español, llame al 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 832-0725-4267, seguido por el símbolo de número. Luego, introduzca el código 883149, seguido por el símbolo de número. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos al...
Thank you. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our Secretary, Dr. Owen Moore. We have no virtual speakers registered. So the committee will accept public comments on tonight's agenda items. Speakers may only address the items for which they are registered. Questions from the public may not be answered during the public comment period. Following public comment, the committee will begin its discussion and no additional comments will be accepted. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201, or fax it to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert Rules of Order dictates that all comments, questions, or requests should be directed to the chair, who will then determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to assure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than board members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in the items of business will be allowed on stage during or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for a listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meetings, agendas, and minutes page of the MPS website. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1.
Item 1 is action on receipt of the fiscal year-end 2023 audit reports. The recommendation is that the board accept the attached fiscal year-end audit report documents.
Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia, members of the board, Eduardo Galvan, interim superintendent. This evening, I am joined by Aicha Sava, who is supporting this item, and to introduce the members of Baker Tilly as they lead us in the presentation of the 2023 audit report. Following the sharing of this information, they'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you. Ms. Sava.
Good evening, Chair Garcia and fellow committee members. Aicha Sava, Chief Financial Officer. Tonight we have Baker Tilly, our external auditor, that will be presenting our 2023 financial audit. As I had previously mentioned last month, we issued our 2023 financials on December 20th and then our single audit on January 17th. Tonight we have Wendy Unger, our partner, and Michelle Walters, Senior Manager. I will now hand it over to Wendy to present our financials.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for having us here this evening. Again, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, my name is Wendy Unger. I am the principal responsible for the audit engagement for MPS for FY23. We have prepared a high-level summary of the various documents that we've issued as part of the audit process. I'm going to have Michelle start, and then I will step in the middle of the presentation, and we'll wrap it up with some very high-level financial information. So, Michelle?
Thank you. Chair Garcia, members of the committee, as Wendy noted, I'm Michelle Walter, Senior Manager on the engagement. And what we're going to do for our agenda tonight is a very high-level overview of the 2023 audit, the reports issued, the opinions received. We're going to move into the federal and state compliance findings. So these deal with the grant-related funds the district received. Then some required communications that we have to annually have as your auditors, some internal control items, financial highlights, and lastly, any questions that anyone may have. So overall, the audit is kind of broken up into a couple phases. We start out the audit even before the end of the fiscal year. And we do planning and preliminary field work, which involves a lot of internal control items, process documentation, and not really focusing on the numbers at that point. We then shift gears based on what we find in this internal control work to develop our audit plan. And so then once final field work starts, we dig into the numbers, and then once the district has closed the books, and then use supporting documentation, grant claims, reconciliations to make sure the numbers that are reported make sense. And from that, questions come up, and then journal entries get made to get the numbers where they should be. Once that is all done, the financial statements are drafted, provided to us to review and work through any changes. So the end game of this audit process is for us, your auditors, to be able to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And for 2023, we were able to issue unmodified opinions for the district's financial statements, also known as the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, as well as the 2 pension plans for the district. Now, this is the highest level of assurance you can get from your auditors, so that means the financial statements themselves are free of any material misstatements, that they include all the required disclosures, and that accounting principles have been consistently applied from year to year. Shifting gears, the federal and state program compliance audit. This is also known as the single audit. So because the district expends over $750,000 of federal grants, this audit is required. And kind of the process for this single audit is we go through and do some major program determination, which is, okay, what programs need to be audited in that given year? So in fiscal year 23, there was 5 federal programs and 7 state programs. And so what happens once we determine these is the department that grants these funds has a listing or a compliance supplement that says what we need to test. So we're going through testing items such as reporting requirements, that expenditures are appropriate for that grant funds, any claims or any other items that agency determines are important enough. So for 2023, there were 2 federal findings, so based on federal grant monies. The first one related to the ESSER funds, And this is labeled Equipment and Real Property Management. And basically, federal guidelines state that you need to have very detailed records of capital assets that are purchased with federal money. So asset ID, the funding source, where it's located, who holds the title, acquisition date, lots of details. So in the sample that was selected, there was some missing items in those documentation. The second item related to Medicaid, and there is a ratio calculated for IEPs, and the supporting documentation that was provided didn't match what was reported for this ratio. So once this was identified, the ratio was corrected going forward. There was one state finding for the AGR program, and this is related to our sample. We had 4 teachers out of 60 that were not licensed in this testing. So all teachers charged to this program need to be licensed. So 2 federal findings, 1 state findings. If you were to look at the single audit report itself, you would see that there's 11 total findings. The other findings relate to the financial statement that we're required to put in there, and Wendy will touch on those in just a second.
All right. The additional document that we issue as part of the audit process, in addition to the financial statements that Michelle has referred to and the federal and state compliance audit, is what's referred to as our reporting and insights document. That is a separate document. The reason for issuing that separate document has several purposes. One, we are required under our standards that we follow as auditors to communicate certain internal control type situations to those charged with governance, and some of those need to be in the form of written text. So that document accomplishes that. We also utilize that document to communicate comments and recommendations that may not rise to the level of a material weakness or significant deficiency, but items that we believe management and the board and committee should be aware of. We also have some required communication under our standards that we need to include within that document. And in a moment, I will go through what those required communications are. One last item that is also included within the reporting and insights document is our management representation letter. That is a document that is put on district letterhead, reviewed and signed by the various members of management and included in that document. That representation letter really refers to various representations that are made to us as part of the audit process. On the next slide, then, we begin the required communications. These are the communications that we need to have with you as your auditors. These are included in that document in more of a paragraph format. But just to highlight a couple of the items that is contained within that section. One highlights our responsibility as your auditors. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statement, and Michelle mentioned what those were. We are also required to follow generally accepted auditing standards when performing your audit. We also plan and perform the audit to provide a reasonable, not an absolute assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. So what that means is we do what we believe to be sufficient work to be able to issue an opinion, believing that the information is materially accurate. We do not look at every transaction of the entity in doing and rendering that opinion. We also, our responsibility is to issue an opinion on the federal and state compliance audits, and again, Michelle mentioned that earlier. Also included in that communications, we're required to communicate any changes in accounting policies. When we note accounting policies here, this is not district policies. These are policies that the district has to follow from external resources. So this would be any new governmental accounting standards, or GASBs, that, as we refer to them, that were implemented during the year, and there were none for FY23. We communicate in that section the various estimates that are included within the district's financial statement. And those various estimates relate to some of the calculations for self-insurance, but probably your most significant estimates that are included within your statements are related to your pension and OPEB obligations. Those calculations are based on actuarial testing and data. It's based on various assumptions that are, based on current circumstances and what are expected to happen in the future. So again, we are required to let you know that those are included in your statements. We do review all of that work as part of our audit process and believe that the information provided is reasonable and materially accurate. We also included in that report is a list of the material journal entries that we proposed as part of the audit process, and you'll see a list included in the document that you've been provided, some of the various proposed entries that were ultimately made by management related to the various accruals, accounts payable, revenues, receivables, some of the normal activity of the district. On the next page, we are also required to communicate to you if there were any journal entries that were proposed as part of the audit process but not made by management, just due to the dollar amount of those journal entries. And again, we've highlighted those on the slides, those related to some additional retainages, life insurance, and some unavailable revenue that ultimately the district decided not to run through the audited statements. And again, we did not take exception to that based on the dollar amounts. We are not aware that our financial statements have been included in any other documents that would contain information that may contradict the information. An example of this would be an official statement for a debt borrowing. Disagreements with management, very happy to say we did not have any disagreements with management. We are aware that the district is working or has worked with CLA, another accounting firm, in assisting with the various federal and state program recording, reporting, and reconciliation, so we are aware of that. We're also, there were no issues discussed prior to our retention as your auditors that would be outside of the normal and customary communication process. And then lastly, on this slide, I highlight difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We are required to share anything that might come up, and I would say, as you're fully aware, the items that were noted were significant delays in issuing the audited financial statements and related reports, and then just unexpected effort needed for us to get the audit information or the accurate financial information to be able to do that for FY23. On the next slide, this is where, again, as I noted when we began, there are certain things that we need to communicate to you in written form. The top items here that are referred to as material weaknesses are those items. Again, all of this information is included in that reporting and insights document with much more information, much more detail, and also provides management's response to the various points. I will very quickly touch on each of these. The very first item, material weakness, financial statement close process, that is just ensuring that the data and the documents and the reports that we get as part of the audit process are materially accurate. Those would be the financial statements that are prepared by management, and then ultimately the schedule and federal state awards that we audit as part of the audit process. Both of those documents contain material differences from what we expected, and therefore we are required to communicate that as a material weakness. Continuing on, audit readiness, timely submissions, and accurate financial statements, as I just mentioned, and the difficulty we had in performing the audit, again, led to lack of timely submissions by the district, and then ultimately audit readiness. The next item refers to journal entry deletions. As part of the FY23 audit, it came to our attention that the general ledger system allows the deletion of entries after they've been posted to the system. That is not something that is typical, and that is something that is very hard to audit because it's there and then it's not. So really, our comment related to this is just encouraging management to implement some policies, procedures, internal controls over this process, if that is something the district continues to have the ability to do, but really to have the proper controls in place to ensure that there's not inappropriate deletions being done. Next item refers to accounts payable and year-end analysis, really just making sure that there's a proper procedures and policies are being followed to ensure that all appropriate and material accounts payable are recorded as part of the year-end processing cycle. There was some large dollar amounts that were found much later in the audit process than what we have typically seen. Budget reporting is another item that was noted. As part of the audit process, a lot of our work is from an analytical standpoint, so we look at actual results compared to budget figures. In doing that and in ultimately validating the information that was to be provided in the audited statements, we had some difficulties. We were not able to validate the budget figures that were within the general ledger to any type of supporting document, either an adopted or a final budget for the district. So again, we're looking for management to put in place policies and procedures that ensure that that doesn't happen in the future. Also noted in the comment in the issued document, we do have some discussions about the existing policies that already exist within the district for budget amendments and that type of situation, and we were not able to validate that those policies that currently exist were being followed also. So again, making sure that there is some attention paid to that. The last item that is under material weaknesses just talks about deficit cash that's held by the City of Milwaukee. City of Milwaukee holds the operating cash for the district. Obviously, that would be your largest portion of your cash held there. As of June 30th of 23, that deficit was roughly $141 million. That was, again, negative cash that the district had with the city. At that point in time, the rationale and the reasoning for that deficit was related to ESSER funding. There was a timing issue as to when the costs were incurred and when ultimately the ESSER claims went into Department of Public Instruction and those funds were received. Again, something that management needs to continue to monitor and determine what the appropriate resolution is if that deficit cash position continues, and I believe it has continued into the subsequent years. The next items, the significant deficiencies, those are the three findings that Michelle mentioned under the single audit. So those are repetitive in nature, but we also include them in this report, so I will not go through those in any more detail. Other comments for consideration, we include a capital asset activity comment, and these are not of any significant magnitude, really just items that were noted as part of the audit process. The capital asset activity is evaluating the capital assets that the district has and appropriately disposing of assets as they are removed from your inventory under whatever method that may be, sale, disposal. So just a comment to recommend some attention be paid there. And then the last comment there is talking about timeliness of time and effort reporting. And time and effort reporting just means that individual salaries are being appropriately allocated to the programs for which they actually spend their time. Some of that is not being done on a timely manner, so ultimately claim forms for certain grants may not have the appropriate percentages allocated to them at the appropriate time. So again, just having a look at that operation. The last points on there, I'm not going to go over at all. Those are carryovers from previous years, and the report does highlight the outstanding situation for each of those, along with management's response for FY23. I will now turn it back over to Michelle to wrap up on the last slide with just some very high-level financial information.
Thanks. And this, again, is very high-level information, but at the end of 2023, the governmental funds ended the year decreasing fund balance by about $49.3 million. And this decrease is a combination of three different funds. So the general fund, your main operating fund, decreased fund balance by about $92.2 million for 2023. On the flip side, the construction fund increased by about $43.6 million, and a lot of this was due to a $60 million contribution to that fund. And then the nutrition services fund decreased by about $734,000. So at the end of the year, The fund balance for the district was at about $67.5 million. Of this amount, the capital projects funds had the largest fund balance of $140.5 million, and all of this is restricted or committed for those future capital projects. There was a deficit in the general fund of about $69.7 million and the nutrition fund of about $3.3 million. These are all shown in what's categorized as unassigned fund balance because of their deficit nature. During 2023, no new debt was issued, and the district paid down the existing debt by about $21.1 million. And the last item that I'll call to your attention is just those long-term liabilities the district has. The pension and the OPEB are the two main ones. The Wisconsin retirement system liability shifted from an asset to a liability, so that changed by about $246 million, as well as the OPEB liability decreased by about $36.8 million. So once again, those are the significant liabilities that are included in there. Myself and Wendy, that's all that we had prepared, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you to Ms. Sava and her team, and then for Ms. Unger and Ms. Walker at Baker Tilly for just presenting the findings that I think gives us a lot of things to talk through for us. So before we open it up to committee members, I know that we have two folks that are registered to speak. So we're going to call them up. First, we're going to have Ms. Teresa Falleron, followed by Ms. Deborah Keither. They're making their way to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Teresa Falleron, and you know me. I am a MPS whistleblower and a public school advocate. These audits prove again that NPS administrators and the board directors knew of the mismanagement. Look at the historical record laid out in the Baker Tilly reports for the last 4 years, as well as the governor's operational audit. I know you knew because I and others have the receipts, right? We have the documents and they've been shared with you. NPS needs to heal. And the first step in healing is for this board to apologize to Milwaukee taxpayers, NPS whistleblowers, NPS families, and NPS children. Healing and reconstruction of this institution under its new superintendent needs to begin with an apology from this board for your actions and your inactions, which has caused the fractured state that NPS is currently in. Let the new superintendent start with a clean slate, beginning with your apology. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Deborah Keither.
Hello, Deb Keither, Kuether. Baker Tilly spent a majority of the time discussing their reporting requirements and very little substance of the actual findings, which is what this board so desperately needs. We know from your own quotes that this board cannot explain the difference between a proposed, actual, or amended budget. Nobody knew. Here are a few quotes right out of your paperwork. Let's start on page 22, where you said there were 8 material weaknesses. And by the way, it says there is adequate staffing to prepare financial reports throughout the year and at end of year. So stop telling people you don't have enough people to work for you. They're here. More so, another quote on page 22, individuals in management positions do not possess the appropriate skills, knowledge, and experience to insist in ensuring complete and accurate information is available for the preparation of the financial statements. That's a problem. Next page, material weakness number 2, and I hope you read this at some point. I really do. If you do anything, maybe you can read this. Maybe we wouldn't have been charged $84 million, we wouldn't have to pay back $84 million to the state for being overcharged. How the heck did that happen? It happens because this stuff is 2 years behind schedule. Again, on this finding, it said the people do not have appropriate skills, knowledge, and experience to oversee the day-to-day functions, leading to significant delays in inaccurate financial data. On page 24, the ability to delete a previously posted journal entry creates the potential for fraud or errors that occur. Hello, that's why we're here. Page 25, and like Teresa said, we have been looking at your audits for 3 years or more, since 2019. These are repeat findings. That means the people you have here aren't reading this, and you're not reading it, okay? I could go on. I've got 30 seconds left. Page 25. You mentioned the $141 million. I know you guys don't think that's a lot when you have a $1.5 billion budget, but our families do. And we're tired of being saddled with a $252 million budget referendum on top of an $84 million referendum, right in the road, 1-2 punch, right to your most vulnerable populations. That is disgusting. And I know I'm out of time, and you're going to yell at me that I'm out of time, so I will stop now. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Keither. Welcome. All right, do we have any committee members that wish to make comments or ask questions? We'll start off with Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I do have a number of questions, so I'll just maybe ask one and pass it and then ask another one.
We'll give that a whirl.
Okay, thanks. On page 19 of the audit results report, it does talk about an IT assessment. It sounds like there's maybe some additional information you're going to be providing to the board regarding IT findings. I don't know that we've gotten those yet. Just when will we expect to get those?
Administration?
It's page 19.
Director Zambor, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, that information is available. It will be provided to the district by the end of next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? We'll go with President Herndon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question is in regard to a statement you made about deficiencies in staff capabilities, and we've done quite a bit of hiring, pretty much restructuring our finance department from the top to the bottom. Do you think that the current staffing will put us in a far better place to make sure that these deficiencies are corrected?
Administration?
Director Herndon, Chair Garcia, excuse me, I did that in reverse. Again, in terms of the staffing, we are more staffed than we have been in the last couple of years. In addition, our staff has undergone some training either with Baker Tilly's recommendation or with GPI to make sure that some of those policies and procedures that were mentioned do develop some standard operating procedures, some templates. CLA, when they come in as well, have helped to establish what we should be doing when we're looking at things in terms of reporting, in terms of collecting appropriate data to support some of those reports. So we are in a better position than we were previously.
Any
Thank you.
follow-up, President Herndon?
That's fine.
You good? Oh, I think Baker Tilly wanted to say something.
Director Herndon, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Wendy Unger from Baker Tilly. I just wanted to add, please keep in mind that the audit for FY23 was under a different group of management. So yes, in response to your question, I think you are in a very good place with the new individuals that you have in place to make change and positive change.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we all wanted to hear that. All right, Director Zambor, we'll go back to you.
Question number 2. So I do have a question about the ability to delete journal entries. It looks like the administration's response says that they've restricted this ability for most end users. I'm wondering what would be the purpose why you would want someone to have the ability to continue it, and is this a strong enough response, or is this an old response from previous management?
Ms. Sawa?
All of the responses in our audit are from our current management, so they are from us. We are in the process of changing them, and we are, reevaluating as the time goes by. But yes, we have restricted the ability to delete journal entries, and like your question did say, we did. We will have to keep kind of reevaluating as we're going, but we are in the process of making sure that no one can go in and do something that they shouldn't be able to do.
Any other?
So it is a work in process at the
Thank
same
you.
time.
Would Baker Tilly also be able to comment?
Sure. Director Zomborch, Chair Garcia, members of the committee. What I would just add to that is I think a lot of the information that was provided to us at the time that this was noted was the volume or the extensiveness of the journal entries that were being deleted. So in a lot of the cases, not all, but in a lot of the cases, the journal entries that were being deleted were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines. So instead of trying to go in and reverse those, they just deleted them. So that is one of the situations, which again got to the same end result, but you do lose your audit trail under that scenario.
Any follow-up?
Just that, do you have a reason to believe the fiscal year 24 audit that's in progress, you're not finding that number and that, is it possible to say preliminarily?
Currently, no, we are not seeing
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. President Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of my questions is related to inventory, and I wanted to know if you feel that the current processes and procedures used to record either inventory coming in or going out or being thrown away, if our software that's used or whatever the case may be, is it functional or sufficient enough to give us accurate information? Or do we need to change our practices, especially perhaps in schools and perhaps maybe with facilities or something? I don't know exactly, but I do know that some of our internal audits have to do with not properly reporting some of the inventory.
Administration?
Director Herndon, Chair Garcia, I think, Director Herndon, you're referring to some of the smaller items that we brought forward, I think, at a different Finance Committee meeting. Is that what you're?
Well, she mentioned inventory
Oh,
earlier tonight. Yes.
I believe that finding is separate, right? I don't think it's related to what you might
Okay.
be thinking of, Director Herndon.
I just wanted to make sure because they
And I
are-
believe that one specific to a certain grant. I thought that was the case. Go ahead.
Yes,
Michelle.
that was applicable to ESSER-funded capital asset additions. And
Right.
Yep.
That's what I thought. And I know that we tried to make sure that the things that were purchased that we used ESSER funds for were accurately recorded. But in addition to that, we're done with ESSER now. So we want to make sure that going forward, whatever it is, that it's recorded accurately.
Administration?
Yes, Director Herndon, Chair Garcia, we have been revising our capital asset policy and the inventory policy to be able to better record that. And I do think our management response within the capital asset section 2 addresses that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll go with Director Leonard and then Jackson.
I guess more of a general concern. Okay, so first of all, two things. One, are you available as we read and study this? Because I'm going to have more questions, and I definitely have to ask questions because I won't deny it, this is a little bit out of my league, to say the least, okay? But I am studying it, and I just want to make sure that you're available for that. So that's my first question. Thank you. And then the second question is just a concern. So when you talk about lack of timely reporting, almost like when I've read some of the statements, and there's almost like there was a resistance to getting the information. First of all, I'm going to assume that we are not seeing that problem anymore. Can I get an assurance of that?
Administration or Baker Tilly team?
Chair Garcia, Director Leonard, I think the current management, that is not our practice, and we have developed different policies and procedures, and we are hopefully very responsive to our auditors whenever they request something from us.
Any follow-up, Director Leonard? Oh, Mr. Galvan.
In regards to the first question, Director Leonard, or any other board member, obviously, when there's a question, we have been and will continue to be available to provide those answers.
Okay, no, I'm good on that. I just need that assurance. I'm having PTSD at the moment. I can be honest with you because it's been a rough year plus really, because we've been asking some questions since as far back as December of '23. But thank you. I'm good.
All right, Director Jackson.
Yeah, you mentioned with the unlicensed teachers. What about an audit of unlicensed staff, period? So if we starting off a new slate with a new superintendent, we need to also see the record of staff that is not currently licensed in their positions.
Administration?
Chair Garcia, Director Jackson, again, in terms of unlicensed, whether that be there on provisional or a separate kind of license, that is something that we report to DPI and others, and we would certainly share that with the board when those reports are filed.
Any follow-up, Director Jackson?
No.
All right, any other questions?
Yep.
Oh, Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. So looking at the contract invoicing support comments, and this is related to ensuring that, the appropriate exhibits are attached to the contracts before paying them out. I understand that there's kind of been repeated responses from management that we're working to develop staff and there's professional development. I'm wondering, what is the accountability for staff that, quite frankly, refuse to follow policies regarding this item?
Administration.
Director Zambor, Chair Garcia, I will say for contract invoicing, we have been actually currently revising our policies and procedures, and actually Ms. Adamczyk has created different checklists and toolkits, I guess, for user departments. So we actually are about to roll that out as well throughout our departments. So that is kind of a retraining session, and we are hoping that will, that we will have all the correct invoicing with all of our contracts that way.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, and so I understand that we're revising the checklist, revising policies, there's a lot of training, but like at the end of the day, if someone pays a contractor out with appropriate documentation, are there consequences for that? And do people know that?
Administration.
Director Zambor, Chair Garcia, as Ms. Saba mentioned, so one, we want to make sure that people are aware of what the requirements are. There has been a recent shift in what the requirements or what the asks are. Previously there was some contracts and things that were entered into where there wasn't a lot of ask about detail on our end, and more specifically, and probably more importantly, on the end of the people that were delivering these services to us. So again, we have now moved into a space where we're being very specific about what's needed on both ends, so that anybody that doesn't follow through, we would, again, if it's on the reception of those services, we obviously will take steps to either, mitigate loss or recuperate loss on our end. Then we would go through our normal HR proceedings to follow if it leads to discipline, progressive discipline, or whatever the case may be.
Any follow-up? Thank you. All right. Is there any other comments or questions from committee members? Okay, well, Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. Sorry, let me get my question. Okay, so considering the current environment and the state of the district financial reporting, what does Baker Tilly recommend the board set as an expectation of the administration to ensure the board can monitor and oversee the correction of the material weaknesses and significant deficiencies that were in the report.
Yes, Ms. Unger or Ms. Walter?
Director Zambor, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, I think, from our perspective, the document that we issued contains significant detail, also includes management's response and what they're going to propose to do to rectify the finding. I would think that a reasonable request would be that on perhaps a quarterly basis, you're provided an update on where each of those items are at. Obviously, the cadence, whether it's quarterly, monthly, whatever you would deem appropriate, that's up for you to decide. But I think some reporting back to the board as to what progress has been made in addressing those issues. As previously discussed, a lot of those have already seen progress when those were brought to attention of the current management. Items are moving in the proper directions. Policies, procedures are being considered and implemented as needed. So I think you're going to see hopefully some progress. None of those happen overnight, and if you recall, those were just issued in early January, so they haven't been in management's hands for an extensive period of time. So again, but I think a reporting back to the board on the status on a cadence that you determine as appropriate would be the right situation.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
No follow-up on that, unless,
Can I add a comment?
Yes, Ms. Sawa, please.
Chair Garcia and Director Zambor, I would also just add, since we are in the middle of the 2024 audit, we will be issuing the 2024 audit, in the spring sometime. So a lot of these findings that you're seeing tonight, they will be re-reported in the reporting and insights document for the FY24 financials. So we will have an update at that point as well, especially for the single audit findings. And then, as Ms. Unger mentioned, a lot of the material weakness findings that are on there with the financial close, the year-end close, financial reporting, those are obviously all being worked on, ASAP, and those are the most important findings and the ones that, that's what we're turning around the Office of Finance for. So I just wanted to add that.
Any other questions?
I do have one more question. Thank you, Chair Garcia. And I just want to also thank you for all of your work addressing these findings. I know I'm sure it's very difficult, closing the fiscal year 23 while simultaneously starting the 24 audit. I can't imagine how hard it would be to do both at the same time. And I think, and I'll probably make a motion, I have another question, just around some of that regular updating. And don't take offense to this, but just because we've been told audits will be done at certain times and then they aren't, I think we do need to have that quarterly date set. And that's not, not a lack of confidence in our current finance staff. It's just with what we've seen, I think we just have to have a set regular cadence to talk about that. Baker Tilly mentioned that there were deficit cash balances held by the city. The board was told that for the same fiscal period that we had surpluses that were shifted into other funds, the Long-Term Capital Improvement Trust Fund being one of them. I'm concerned these two events do not reconcile one another. I'd like to know what Baker Tilly's thoughts are on this and the administration as well.
All right, administration and/or the Baker Tilly team.
Director Garcia, or Chair Garcia, Director Zambor, when we initially looked at the reports and the deficit cash, it was all, grant funding, as Wendy had noted before, and it would come in fiscal year 24, 25, and recoup that negative cash. When we look at where things are, even as of today, not necessarily as of the June 30th, 2024 numbers, I think it's still at that deficit cash position. So even with ESSER being closed out. So I know finance team is looking into where that sits and what their needs are on that front. But as far as, kind of erasing that deficit balance, I think that's still out there at this point.
Ms. Sawa?
Chair Garcia and Director Zombor, to follow up on Ms. Walter's comment, that is correct. We are actually actively investigating this situation, and we are kind of looking into the root causes, and we will, it is active, ongoing, so that's the best answer at this point.
Any follow-up, Director Zambor?
No, not at this time.
All right, do we have
can-
questions from any other committee members?
No.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms.
I can.
Oh, you have a
I
motion,
think we have
yes.
to move to approve the, yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I would like to move to accept the audit documents as attached in this item and also ask the administration to come back quarterly to discuss progress made towards the fiscal year 23 audit findings.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All right. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Zomber's motion to accept the attached fiscal year-end audit report documents and also ask administration to come back quarterly to provide progress towards the recommendations included in the audit report. Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry, point of information. Can I change my motion? I want to add something to it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm also going to add that, and this is related to what you had just talked about with the deficit cash at the city. I'd also like to direct, in addition to this, direct the OAE in collaboration with the administration to review the fund transfer and investment policies of the district and bring back the recommendations to improve the board oversight and approve of these activities no later than the June board cycle. Unless you want to do that in two separate motions? Is it
No, you
okay
can
to do as
that in
one?
one.
Okay.
Repeat that last piece.
Yep.
Direct OAE with administration to.
Review the fund transfer and investment policies of the district and bring back the recommendations to improve the board's oversight and approval of the activities no later than the June board cycle.
Have it written down.
All right. Will the secretary please call the roll on this new motion?
All right. I will do my best on this one. You may have to add words. On Director Zomber's motion to accept the attached fiscal year-end audit report documents and also ask administration to come back quarterly to provide updates on progress towards the recommendations in the audit report, and to direct OAE and administration to review fund transfer and investment policies and to provide, say this last part.
Investment policies and bring back the recommendations to improve the board's oversight and approval of these activities no later than the June board cycle.
Okay. And to bring back recommendations to improve the board's oversight no later than the June board cycle. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Zomber.
Aye.
Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Excellent. And again, thank you to the team. I know there's a lot of pre-work and back work and all sorts of work that's being done in collaboration across departments. So just know that we appreciate it, and may the findings of our FY24 audit be even stronger. All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, item 2 is action on monthly personnel matters, action on classified personnel transactions, action on certificated appointments, action on leaves of absence, report on resignations and retirements, affirmative action. The recommendation is that the board approve the promotions, appointments, and leaves as listed in the attachments to the item to be effective upon approval by the board.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent, the administration requests your approval of the monthly personnel matters as attached in this month's report. I have with me Carol Eady to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We do not.
All All right, let's moving on to committee members. Is there anyone who has questions or comments about the item before us? Director Leonard.
If my numbers are accurate, it looks like this is another uptick year when it comes especially to retirements. And I'm sort of throwing you a little bit of a curveball because you just sort of got started on this, but I'm just curious. I don't so much, I guess, what's your sense of where we're at right here? Because I am, I'm getting a lot of calls from different administrators who are telling me they're losing staff members or fear of losing staff members pretty quickly. When I look at the numbers, the dates, the effective dates on here, a significant portion of them are actually in June, but I also see those in January. And this will wear buildings down if they have too many staff members leaving at this point in time.
Ms. Edie?
Director Leonard, Director Leonard, Chair Garcia, Carol Edie, Interim Chief Human Resources Officer. In looking at our retirements and resignations, this time compared to last year, we are about at the same number. We had about 457 last year at this time, and today it's at 454. So we're kind of right at where we were last year.
Okay, well, that's actually maybe better news, but I do have concerns, and you can't control that, obviously. I would love if we could wave a wand and get everybody in here to work, but thank you for that. And I did have another question. Have we ever decided or put something together where we had some kind of better exit interview so we have a better idea of why they're really leaving? I can ask, and I've started to do that at times. Some people have come to me, but that's not scientific. Anyway, is there anything we can start putting together that we can actually get accurate information on why people are actually leaving the district?
Ms. Edie or Mr. Galvan?
Chair Garcia, Director Leonard, and Ms. Edie will clarify if I misspeak, but we currently do an exit survey. We don't require, and people will put as much or as little as they want in that.
Ms. Edie?
Director Leonard, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Carol Edie, Interim Chief Human Resources Officer. What Mr. Galvan stated is actually correct. We had had discussions to whether or not we want to make something online for employees that are leaving the district, but again, we can't force them to fill out that information, so it would be the same as the paper copy that they're filling out today. So some choose to fill it out and some choose not.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, just one more question then. Is it possible, and I don't know if it is or it isn't, is it possible that the board could receive a narrative on that? I don't really need names. I just need numbers of responses to see what they're saying.
Administration?
Director Leonard, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, yes, we can look to see how we can compile that information. Again, that would require us going through each and every resignation and putting them into a specific category, but that is something that we can look into and be happy to come back to the board and see if that is something that would be acceptable.
Thank you.
So just clarification, Director Leonard, are you asking for this report to have an addendum with maybe like trends or narrative of the reasons to this specific report?
That is, the idea is to get to see the trends, to see what we're really getting. I think that what happens is we get all these resignations and retirements and whatnot, but we don't have really a real good feel for what's really happening in our district. And I think at this point in time, and I should have asked this 4 years ago because I was thinking about it then. I even looked at my notes, so I'm not sure where I was at that point in time. But anyway, I just think it would give us a much better approach. So when we start doing our meetings with regards to safety, with regards to looking at benefits and all the other possibilities of why something is happening, this would possibly give us a much clearer picture of what is really happening in our district. And I don't know if we could present it in public on a trend line, but I would not go into any significant detail.
Perfect. So then I know, eventually, do you want to make a motion for that?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. You know what? Yes, I would like to make a motion. to require that.
Is that in
Is
connection
that-
to
is
this
in-
item on the agenda? Or
Yes, in connection to this item on the agenda.
particularly focused on this year, then, the resignations that we're seeing there? Or,
Well, I actually have to ask Carol, if you don't mind, how often could you do this? How much work would it take? Is it going to be, it would be difficult on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis? Which would be easier for you?
Ms. Edie?
Director Leonard, Chair Garcia, members of the committee, I would say if we could do this maybe on a quarterly basis, because doing this monthly again would be going through each and every resignation. But I would say quarterly, we can probably report out what the trends are.
So I would put in the motion that on a quarterly basis, we would receive a narrative, and I don't know how you want to word that. I'm going to leave that up to you. Sorry.
why don't you try to make a motion that includes the item, so the administration's recommendation, and to provide a quarterly update?
On the reasons for people leaving the district and or retiring, so that we can gather some kind of trend line data.
Okay.
All right, is there any further discussion? Director Zambor?
Thank you, Chair Garcia. Just to so you want more, because the reasons are in here, but the reasons are personal, retire, other work.
Yeah,
You
that-
want something more specific than the reasons listed?
Most definitely. Yeah, we need to see some types of narratives. I know that there are some people that put in the narrative why they've left. So it's, that would just give us a lot more meat to work with.
All right, will the secretary please call the roll?
Chair Garcia.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
No, sorry, Chair Garcia. Director Leonard, we will certainly, again, we will provide this quarterly. That's not a problem. Again, we will provide what we have in terms of that. Again, I think I just want to be clear as to your point, some people put a lot there, other people put very little. So I just don't want the expectation to be more than what we gather, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think that I'm going to have to trust your judgment on making it a summary. I mean, if somebody writes a book, I don't expect a book, but I do want some kind of summary and a way to I think over time you'll find a way to categorize it and break it down a little bit better, and it'll give us a much clearer idea of what we're looking at in our district.
Excellent. All right, any other comments? All right, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Leonard's motion to approve the administration's recommendation and to provide a narrative on responses to exit surveys quarterly regarding trends on retirements or leaving the district. Director Herndon.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director Zumber.
Aye.
Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 3 is action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases, decreases, and limited-term employment contracts exceeding 60 days. The recommendation is that the board approve the promotions, appointments, salary increases and decreases, and limited-term employment contracts as listed in the attachments to the item to be effective upon approval by the board.
Would the administration please present the item?
Point of information. Did we approve, did Director Leonard's motion approve the last item? I think we may, it was both. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
All right, administration, can you please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent, the administration requests your approval of this item as it pertains to recommendations for appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, as well as salary increases or decreases in LTE employment. I have with me Carol Edie to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make any comments?
We do not.
All right, then we'll move on to committee members. Is there any questions or comments related to this item? All right, seeing none, what is the pleasure of the committee in regards to this item? Director Zambor.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I move that we approve the administration's recommendation as it relates to promotions, appointments, and salary increases, decreases as listed in this item.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All right, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Zomber's motion to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Excellent. So before we proceed to the next item, on behalf of the board, I would like to congratulate all the candidates listed in the previous 2 items. You are now one step closer to appointment, promotion, or transfer. All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, item 4 is report with possible action on limited-term employees, July through December of 2024. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Would the administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, this evening what you have in front of you is a copy of the semi-annual limited term employees LTE report for July through December 2024. Again, Ms. Edie is with me to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We do not.
All right. Do we have committee members that wish to make comments or ask questions? All right. Well, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 5 is report with possible action on the district's final elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund budget detail and evaluation plan. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item? I know the folks are settling
Chair
in.
Garcia and members of the committee, this evening the administration will provide you with the final ESSER report. To share this report, I am joined by Shelley Perkins, who will lead this presentation, along with the representatives Dr. Chamberlain and Dr. Adams from American Institutes of Research, AIR. As always, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have following the presentation. Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Thank you. Chair Garcia, members of the committee, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present. My name is Shelley Perkins, and I serve as the Director of State and Federal Programs. Tonight, we are pleased to share the final updates of ESSER 3, which concluded on September 30th, 2024. This presentation will review program achievements and the total expenditures approved by the Milwaukee Board of School Directors in May of 2024. The ESSER 3 initiatives provided nearly $506 million to Milwaukee Public Schools, an investment that has shaped educational opportunities and community impact. The final ESSER 3 budget report captures our progress and reflects our steadfast commitment to fiscal responsibility and transparency. ESSER 3 has been a cornerstone in advancing Milwaukee Public Schools' strategic priorities. By supporting educational equity and fostering stakeholder engagement, the program has ensured our focus remains on the success of students, families, and educators. As we reflect on the program's conclusion, the accomplishments achieved demonstrate the profound impact of these funds. Through ESSER 3, we have empowered students to achieve remarkable milestones. The M3 College Connection program enabled 152 students to earn a total of 1,837 college credits, giving them a significant head start on higher education. In partnership with historically Black colleges and universities, 286 students participated in immersive college tours, broadening their horizons and aspirations. Partnerships with UWM and MATC provided 820 students access to dual enrollment courses, bridging the gap between high school and college. The MPS virtual program allowed students to complete 1,814 courses, reflecting our commitment to offering flexible and accessible learning opportunities. Additionally, Summer and after-school programs supported 4,332 students, contributing to a completion of 1,700 high school credits and fostering academic success. The impact of ESSER III is also evident in measurable student outcomes. Between 2021 and 2024, the pass rate for the personal finance class increased by 26%, demonstrating progress in equipping students with essential life skills. Our tutoring initiatives expanded significantly, with 3,602 students participating in vendor-led programs during the 2023-2024 school year. Enrollment in STEM, career and technical education, and Project Lead the Way courses grew, preparing students for career in high-demand fields. Moreover, 545 students participated in internship and apprenticeship programs, a 57% increase from 2021, gaining valuable real-world experience. ESSER III also supported the professional growth of educators and enriched student learning. Early learners excelled in the counting collections program, advancing 3 levels in math development during 1 year. Literacy initiatives were strengthened through Act 20 training and comprehensive professional development in reading and writing. New science curriculum additions included lessons on climate change, fostering environmental awareness among students. Across subjects, new curriculum in math, science, social studies, and writing ensured a well-rounded and enriched learning experience. Family engagement and community partnerships were vital to the success of ESSER III initiatives. Take-home family engagement kits focusing on literacy, math, and social-emotional learning reached 35,000 students and families, extending educational opportunities beyond the classroom. The New Educator Institute provided training and support to 240 new teachers and paraprofessionals, equipping them to meet the diverse needs of our students. In community schools, expanded programming enhanced instruction in language arts, math, and STEM while cultivating positive school environments. A new health clinic established at South Division High School in partnership with 16th Street Community Health Centers addressed critical health needs for students and families. In health and wellness, ESSER III made strides in 3 critical areas: mental health, physical health, and social-emotional learning. The district expanded access to mental health services, provided advanced training to staff, and implemented trauma-informed interventions to meet students' needs. Physical health improvements included enhanced fitness stations, additional nursing materials, and supplemental nutritional support. Every school received a discretionary budget to address community-specific needs. Social-emotional learning initiatives utilize trusted partners to develop direct services and supported K-5 students with continued access to the second step curriculum. Departments like Black and Latino male achievement, gender identity and inclusion, and restorative practices were strengthened and supported to further ensure student access to valuable programming. Facilities advancements have significantly enhanced the learning environment for students and staff. Major additions and renovations at schools like Reagan High School, Milwaukee High Schools of the Arts, and Vincent High School expanded capacity and improved facilities. Investments in technology ensured students had access to modernized tools, including refreshed Chromebooks, interactive flat panels, and digital signage. Desktops, document cameras, and esports equipment were also provided to meet evolving educational and extracurricular needs. ESSER III funds also enriched experiential learning. In 2023 and 2024, 706 students in grades 4 through 8 attended overnight camps in Wisconsin through school and summer opportunities. Surveys revealed that 76% of campers reported growth in friendship skills, affinity for nature, and exploration. Furthermore, all planned upgrades to athletic facilities were completed by September 2024, ensuring that students could access state-of-the-art resources. In conclusion, ESSER III funds have had a lasting effect on Milwaukee Public Schools, enhancing education, supporting student success, and improving facilities. These achievements reflect a shared commitment to creating a brighter future for our students, family, and community. Now I'd like to turn it over to our ESSER evaluators, Dr. Rachel Chamberlain and Dr. Elizabeth Adams from the American Institutes for Research. They will be discussing the final evaluation for tutoring, social-emotional learning, and social studies, as well as providing an update on the GIS dashboard. Dr. Chamberlain is a technical assistant consultant and project director for this evaluation. Dr. Adams is a senior researcher and the principal investigator for this evaluation. Dr. Adams?
Good afternoon. Chair Garcia and members of the committee, my name is Elizabeth Adams, and I'm from American Institute for Research, and I am here on behalf of our team at AIR to share the findings from the ESSER evaluation with Milwaukee Public Schools. All right, that's perfect.
We're just getting the PowerPoint up for you, so.
This evaluation focused on 3 initiatives: the tutoring services, the contracted mental health services, and a new social studies curriculum. We also developed a geographic information system, or GIS, which maps participation in tutoring and mental health services across the district. The evaluation included data collected in the 22-23 as well as the 23-24 school years. And today we will share a summary of the findings. The reports, which will be shared with you on a later date, include much greater detail about what we will share today. First, we'll present the findings from the tutoring evaluation. The tutoring evaluation focused on 4 evaluation questions, including how many students participated, how many sessions those students participated in, as well as the effect of participation in tutoring on their attendance as measured by number of unexcused absences and academic outcomes as measured by STAR, reading, and math scores. The total number of students who participated in tutoring increased from about 3,500 students in 22-23 to about 5,000 students in 23-24. On average, students received 25 sessions across the school year in 22-23 and 21 sessions across the school year in 23-24. We observed the largest increase in the number of students served by in-school tutoring providers, and I I would just like to say that the 3 types of tutoring that we focused on in this evaluation, these are vendor-provided tutoring. In school includes tutoring that was provided during the school day by one of 6 vendors. After school includes tutoring that happened after school or on Saturdays, mostly provided by teachers or paraprofessionals. And then virtual was provided by one of 2 vendors, and it was available to all students in the district, whereas the in-school and after-school were only available at some schools. To estimate the effect of tutoring on students' number of unexcused absences, we used a research design that allowed us to make causal claims about the effect of tutoring on student outcomes. We did this with a comparison group. And this slide shows the mean number of unexcused absences for tutoring participants in blue, and the means for the comparison students in green. And here, fewer unexcused absences is better. So please note that these means are the model-adjusted means after we did the modeling strategy to make the 2 groups more comparable with the students who participated in tutoring and the comparison students. And what we see is that the differences between the participating and the comparison students are statistically significant. So the yellow highlights, the boxes, show the differences that were statistically significant. We saw that tutoring significantly reduced students' unexcused absences overall, as well as for in-school and after-school tutoring. Students who participated in tutoring came to school more often, having about 1 fewer unexcused absence relative to similar students who did not receive tutoring. We also examined the effect of tutoring on students' academic achievement as measured by the STAR reading and math assessment. We did not observe statistically significant differences between those who participated in tutoring and comparison students on the STAR reading and math scores. The differences were small and they were not statistically significant. At this point, I'll move to presenting the findings from the evaluation of the mental health services in Milwaukee Public Schools. The mental health evaluation focused on 4 evaluation questions. The questions focused on how many students participated, how many students participated after they were referred to those services, and then to what extent mental health outcomes changed from before to after receiving services, as well as what was the effect of participating in mental health services on students' unexcused absences, which has been shown to, in existing research, to be a measure that correlates with students' general well-being. This evaluation focuses on contracted mental health services. These services include school-based mental health services, which are in-person therapy sessions provided at schools by clinicians who work in local community organizations. It also includes teletherapy, which includes virtual therapy sessions provided outside of regular school hours by clinicians who work for external organizations. Most students receiving mental health services participated in school-based mental health services. This figure shows that of those who participated in each year, 98% of students in 22-23 and 95% of students in 23-24 participated in school-based mental health services. This figure shows that 2/3 of students who were referred to school-based mental health services received a consultation, which is the first step towards actually participating in a session of therapy. And a majority of those referred continued on to receive at least 1 therapy session with a school-based mental health clinician. The percentage of students who received a consultation and at least 1 therapy session were similar across both years, so we show 23-24 here. As noted in the slide title, the percentage of students who received at least 1 therapy session after referral increased 3 percentage points across 22-23 to 23-24. As part of participating in school-based mental health services, students complete a measure called the Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire. Lower scores on this measure indicate better outcomes for students. For students who participated in school-based mental health services, we observed a statistically significant decrease, which is desirable, in students' self-reported scores on the Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire. The findings were consistent across both 22-23 and 23-24. To estimate the effects of participation in school-based mental health services on the number of unexcused absences, we used a similar research design to the one that was described for tutoring, which allowed us to make causal claims about the program's effects on students' attendance relative to a comparison group. Overall, the effect of participating in school-based mental health services on students' number of unexcused absences was not statistically significant. The difference in number of unexcused absences for participating in comparison students was small, and it was not statistically significant. However, we observed that students who received more therapy sessions had fewer unexcused absences relative to comparison students. And so here, this effect that's highlighted with the yellow box, we see that students who received 20 or more therapy sessions the effect was statistically significant. And those students came to school more often, about 2 more days across the course of the school year relative to non-participating students. At this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Chamberlain, who will share the findings from the social studies curriculum evaluation.
Chair Garcia, members of the committee, I'm Rachel Chamberlain from American Institutes for Research. And next, we're going to share our evaluation of the implementation of the new social studies curriculum. And this examined the following questions that you see here, which were, to what extent did teachers across the district feel prepared to implement the new social studies curriculum? To what extent did they implement this curriculum? And then what were their perceptions of the usability, feasibility, and acceptability of the curriculum? And lastly, did the implementation have associated student achievement in social studies? Before I go into the findings, I want to provide some definitions of some of the domains that were used in our survey and focus group with social studies teachers. Preparedness includes how prepared teachers felt to use the curriculum. Some of the survey items related to this asked about teachers' attitudes towards the curriculum, familiarity with the materials, and confidence in using the materials. For implementation, this was the degree to which teachers actually used the curriculum, including both the extent of their use and the fidelity. Usability is the ease of use or how well designed these teachers believed the curriculum was. Feasibility was how viable the curriculum was for current and future use, including teachers' perceptions of district supports and resources throughout the implementation process. And lastly, acceptability was how teachers liked the curriculum and whether this curriculum aligned with their personal teaching goals and the goals of the district. This figure represents the 2 years of this evaluation and overall teachers' percentage positive survey responses in each of the domains I just described. Overall, teachers reported more favorable perceptions about the curriculum across 4 domains in 2022, 23, and 23, 24. The top bar of each of those domains is the first year of the evaluation, and the bottom bar is the second, and so you can see an increase in preparedness, implementation, usability, and feasibility, with a slight decrease in acceptability. Overall, teachers did report more favorable perceptions while acceptability decreased slightly. They did still report to us that they believe the curriculum was more favorable to them and easier to use. Teachers requested some more targeted professional development aligned to their evolving needs. They participated more in professional development across the 2 years. And in engaging with the curriculum more, they had some requests for additional supports. We did not end up observing a relationship between the self-reported teacher implementation of this curriculum and student achievement. And this could possibly be because the first year of implementation, this was the first year of implementation for this curriculum, and the sample size was quite small, 54 teachers. Next, I'll share an update about the geographic information dashboard and its use within the district.
We've shared this dashboard with you previously, and there's been some updates since, which I will share now. Just as a reminder, the GIS dashboard tool was created to produce a visualization of participation in ESSER-funded supports. And so we'll show a screenshot in a moment, but it provides a visualization of the district and where participation in some of these supports were. And that includes tutoring, in-person, virtual, and after-school tutoring, and health and wellness, which includes school-based mental health expansion. The update to this dashboard includes student attendance and student absenteeism data, and so you can also track that using this tool. This is a screenshot of the GIS dashboard tool. And again, the sliders on the left-hand side can be used to manipulate the map on the right-hand side. On the left, we have now a student attendance rate or a student unexcused absenteeism rate. There are also abilities to see which schools participated in which services, and then as you move the sliders, you can see how little or how much they participated. The GIS dashboard is going to be used internally with MPS staff as a tool to continue monitoring these services or similar services. Our organization has trained MPS staff in continued support and updates to the dashboard. And so we hope that this dashboard will be useful for program delivery and monitoring of student outcomes in the future, as measured again by those attendance items. We really appreciate the opportunity to share the findings from this evaluation, and we welcome any questions from you today.
Thank you to Ms. Perkins, Ms. Chamberlain, and Ms. Adams for the information. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We do not.
All right. Do any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? President Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to commend you on bringing this report forward to us because it's been a while since the public was readily monitoring this information, and I still get questions regarding where's the ESSER funds, where did it go, how did we use it? And we had such a report for 1 and 2, but we hadn't gotten the full one for 3. So I thank you very much, and I encourage the listening public to go online on the district portal and take a look at this because the details really tells the story of how we use the money. You know, we bought thousands of Chromebooks and hotspots, and we bought instruments. We hired appropriate staffing that we were in need of, such as social workers, psychologists, to help with the mental health services, some of which you spoke of tonight. So I simply wanted to say thank you for this report.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, item 6 is action on monthly finance matters, authorization to make purchases, report on change orders in excess of $25,000, report on revenues and expenditures, report on contracts under $50,000, and cumulative total report. Report on monthly grant awards, acceptance of donations. The recommendation is that the board authorize the purchases and accept the donations as listed in the attachments, with the appropriate acknowledgement to be made on behalf of the board.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the board, for this item, the administration is requesting your approval of the monthly finance matters. Janine Domchek is here with me to address any questions you may have regarding this item. Thank you.
Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Janina Domchek, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. I would like to bring up one item for you. With respect to the report on change orders in excess of $25,000 that is listed here, there was an upload error, and this is not the current report. We do not have a current report for this month, and with your approval, we will correct this for full board next week.
Thank you for that information. All right. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments on this item?
We do not.
All right. Do we have committee members that have comments or questions? All right. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Herndon.
Director Jackson.
Director Jackson.
That we accept the monthly finance with the correction that the report will be ready for our next full board meeting.
Thank you for that. Is there any further discussion? All right, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Jackson's motion to accept the administration's recommendation with the knowledge that the further report will be brought to the full board meeting, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item 7 is action on the award of professional services contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the professional services contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the board, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. This evening, we are seeking your approval of the professional services contracts before you. Janita Damchik is here with me to assist in any questions you may have regarding this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We do not.
All right, committee members, is there any questions or comments? President Herndon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we accept the recommendations of administration on this item.
All right, is there further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Herndon's motion to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item 8 is action on the award of exception to bid contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the exception to bid contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia, members of the board, we are asking your approval of this month's exception to bid contracts. Janine Damchik is here and will assist in any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We do not.
All right, committee members, any questions or comments? Director Leonard.
So I took the liberty to actually, because I didn't know what it was, and I looked it up, and called the people from Boomerang Project, and just kudos. And I'm assuming this is the first time we're going to use them. Is that correct? Okay. First of all, I just want to mention the fact that it is a sort of a self-sustaining program. So after they explained to me the finances on it and the mentorship program that's involved with it, once our people are trained in it and they get their certifications, that can be carried to any building that they happen to stay in. So it really looks like it could be a highly effective program. I did not look at its overtime results yet, but I just wanted to throw that out there. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the Boomerang Project. Thank you.
All right, administration, anything to say about that?
Chair Garcia, Director Leonard, thank you. And it's otherwise, we presented it as also the link crew, if you might have heard it in that way.
Perfect. Director Jackson.
Yeah, Director Leonard kind of stole my question. But nonetheless, Boomerang, I looked into it as well, and it looked very successful. I can appreciate with having the upperclassmen and students being involved in this too. So just something, I think, and it's just a comment, something else to add to the tool belt of our seniors who are graduating or just a part of the MPS family as they move into employment, something else that they can add and will be successful in this space with this Boomerang link crew as we know it as.
Thank you for that comment, Director Jackson. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Director Leonard.
I move that we accept the administration's action on the award of exception to bid contracts as presented.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Leonard's motion to approve the administration's recommendation regarding exception to bid contracts, Director Herndon,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director Zomber,
Aye.
Chair Garcia.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item, please.
Item 9 is action on the request to waive Administrative Policy 3.09, Parent 9, Parent E, and award a professional services contract to Aroldi Brothers. The recommendation is that the board waive Administrative Policy 3.09, Parent 9, Parent E, and authorize the professional services contract as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent. The item before you on this evening's agenda is a request to waive Administrative Policy 3.09 and award a professional contract to Airoldi Brothers. I have with me Ms. Janina Domchek to summarize this contract, and following that, we'll answer any questions you may have.
Chair Garcia, members of the committee, Janina Domchek, Director of Procurement and Risk Management. We're bringing forth this request for the lease of 6 refrigerated trucks for nutrition services. The request is to waive the 3-year term limit and issue this contract as set forth for 1 year with 4 additional 1-year options if performance metrics are met. The reason that we are asking for this is due to the ability to secure pricing and truck availability. It's in the best interest of the district to extend this contract for 5 years.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We do not.
All right. Do committee members have questions or comments? Director Jackson.
Yeah, and just so the public is aware, so before there were 10 trucks leasing, so now we're down to 6. So, and I'm always in a business mindset, a way we can save money and be at a market rate to lock in these contracts with the Airoldi Brothers. It is, yeah, it'll be in our best interest to do so.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? President Herndon.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of administration on this item.
All right. Is there further discussion? All right. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Herndon's motion to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
Chair Garcia?
Aye.
That is 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 10 is action on monthly facilities matters, FMS contract modification recommendation. The recommendation is that the board waive Administrative Policy 3.09, Parent E, and approve the contract modifications as described in the attachments to this item.
Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the board, we are asking your approval of this month's facilities matters for contract modification that will allow continued services for pool chemicals. I have with me Sean Kane to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comments?
We do not.
All right. Do members of the committee have any questions or comments? Director Jackson.
Yeah, so with the extra $100,000, so previously the contract years 3 years, and now we add in 3 years and 3 months, correct? Is that it, 3 years and 3 months?
Administration.
The addition, 3 months, the extension.
Chair Garcia, Director Jackson, Sean Kane, Senior Director, Facilities and Maintenance Services, is extending it for 3 months. This due to pool chemical usage that we have with typically recreation.
Gotcha. And $100K, and I'm just asking, why so much?
Mr. Kane.
Chair Garcia, Director Jackson, Sean Kane, Senior Director, Facilities and Maintenance Services. Recently, with the upgrades that we did to all the pools, the acid wash is a cost that's more consuming than what was expected. And right now, once we just get the extension through that, we are going to formally bid this out for the services. It's just something that we went through quicker than we expected.
Gotcha, understood. Because that was my next thing. I know we have other, competitors, but nonetheless, understood with the acid wash. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right. What is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Director Jackson.
I move that we accept the facility matters of the contract modification recommendation.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Jackson's motion to accept the FMS contract modification recommendation, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
Chair Garcia?
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Item 11 is action and follow-up to Resolution 2425R-006 on professional development for Act 20. The recommendation is that the board approve the attached plan and calendar.
Thank you. Would administration please present the item?
Chair Garcia and members of the board, Eduardo Galvan, Interim Superintendent, at the January 25 board January 2025, the board approved Resolution 2425R-006 on professional development for Act 20. As such, the administration is required to bring back a plan and a calendar outlining the professional development. That information is attached accordingly, and the administration recommends your approval of the plan and calendar. Here with me is Mr. Michael Harris, and to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have one speaker. If I can have Mr. Quentin Claiborne approach the podium.
Hello, Quentin Claiborne, K-L-A-B-O-N. I'm sorry if I'm ignorant of anything that you're about to say after this. Up front, I truly appreciate you improving the pace of Act 20 reading training a bit. It is not ideal, but it shows you working within your limits to improve kids' outcomes. Thank you dearly. My question is about the room for error. I raise it for two reasons. First, you mentioned last month that you would get through 1.5 units of the 4 total units this year and finish the last 2.5 units next year. That is fine if it happens, but I always get nervous when I hear we did not get everything done as quickly as we planned this year, but next year we'll go at a pace above and beyond. Second, you had originally planned to finish by summer 2026, so a genuine question is, what does this improve? I do think this is good news, but I hope staff could explain to the public the benefit this has for children. Were we not going to actually hit the summer 2026 deadline, and this allows us to make it with that extra time? Or were we barely going to make the deadline, and this gives us some wiggle room in case teachers have to miss a date from sickness or go too slowly? Lastly, if you didn't notice, or if you didn't see, the $50 million for funding all of Act 20 is going back into the surplus after Governor Evers unfortunately messed with the agreement with his partial veto, and there was a big fight. He did recommend that $50 million, along with another $30 million, goes in for the next stages of the law. In my job, I work hard to try and help that happen. But completing the training before the 2027 fiscal year starts, hopefully will get you reimbursed faster. If you can hit, before the calendar flips over, hopefully that gets reimbursed faster. So I hope you hit your goal, and I hope you can explain the advantages that adding in these new half days will create for kids. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any committee members that wish to make comments or questions? Director Jackson.
Yeah, I just wonder how much of a strain that'll put on teachers.
Administration?
Chair Garcia, Director Jackson, if I understand the question, and please correct me if I'm not, in terms of a strain, these are PDs that are set up for teacher development as it pertains to Act 20 and other items that we'll be doing on that half day for other classroom and grade levels. So it's an early release day. So it's not necessarily on a weekend. It's not, at an after school time or before school time. So hopefully this will minimize any additional strain, again, above and beyond their professional responsibilities in terms of professional development.
Any follow-up, Director
No,
Jackson?
thank you.
All right, any other questions? Director Gokul-Gandhi.
Hello, sorry. So this was specifically designed not to put strain on the teachers, right? This is a partnership with administration to think about how we could administer our Act 20 professional development. I would love if you could, I saw Ms. Mims Howell back there, if you could just refresh our memory and for the listening audience why we structured it this way and what the intent of these half-days really were.
Mr. Harris.
Yes. Director Garcia, Director Gokul-Gandhi, members of the committee, Michael Harris, Interim Chief School Administration Officer. So time is always an issue. And so we were really trying to be intentional about allowing our staff to have time during the school day when they're at work so that we can have a bigger impact on the training. We also know when we implement training, we have to hold folks accountable. And so we have to monitor what folks are doing so that we can communicate to our community, to our constituents, that our staff is moving forward with the required training that is required of us by the state. And so we're trying to be very intentional about that work. We want to make sure that they have time. We know that learning does not happen in isolation. We're trying to make sure that we're creating a community of learners in our schools so that we can have a greater impact on our students. So we have worked really hard to try to figure out how we can add an additional 8 hours, and we'll take it because we don't have that now. And so we're excited about this. We're planning intentionally. We have our PD calendar ready for next year, so folks in our system can plan accordingly. It's not last minute, so we're really excited about bringing this opportunity to our staff across the district.
Any follow-up?
No, thank you.
All right, hopefully that gives the listening audience a little bit more background and focus of all the changes that have happened in regards to the support, the initiatives we're taking to support teacher development. All right, so then what is the pleasure of the committee in respect to this item? Directors on board.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. I move to approve the administration's recommendation to approve the attached plan and calendar, sorry.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director Zomber's motion to approve the administration's recommendations regarding the attached calendar and professional development, Director Herndon?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Abstain.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director Zomber?
Aye.
Chair Garcia?
Aye.
That's 4 aye and 1 abstain. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
So as a reminder, a meeting of the Committee on Legislation, Rules, and Policies will begin shortly after this meeting. So being no further business before the committee, this meeting is adjourned.